Greetings everyone, my name is Deadly Mio, and today I want to talk a little bit about the game mode Gridiron. Gridiron, in my opinion, is a criminally underrated game mode. When I initially planned using a Gridiron gameplay for my last video, I was just going to leave that statement as it is and give my opinion as to why I feel that way. After rethinking the statement for a while, I realized that it might be interesting to analyze whether Gridiron really is as unpopular among the objective game modes, as my gut feeling and the fact that matches in this game mode are hard to find were telling me, what the reasons for this could be if true, and what could be done to improve the popularity of the mode. Spoiler alert, I did have to look into those reasons, which is why I created a popularity ranking of objective game modes on PC in general, and compared the characteristics of Gridiron to other objective game modes, in particular Capture the Flag. So for now, I'll just say that I have this mode to thank for some of the most fun matches I played during the life cycle of World War II thus far. For instance, I had a match that went into triple overtime only to be decided by a 3-point field goal. That was absolutely nuts. This gameplay right here on Flag Tower, in which I'm using akimbo pistols yet again, sorry about that, perfectly illustrates why I really enjoyed this game mode. I won't spoil it, but there's a nice twist at the end. First of all, it is no secret that Gridiron's predecessor Uplink was a game mode played in competitive CoD during Advanced Warfare's, Infinite Warfare's and Black Ops 3's life cycle, so you'd assume that this would at least spark some interest in Gridiron. Aside from the fact that the majority of the player base probably doesn't follow competitive CoD, there are two issues with this assumption. And just so you know, I don't even claim to be an expert on competitive CoD myself. I watch some matches here and there, but that's about it. The first issue is, and this one should go without saying, pros play the game on a completely different level. There's a lot more strategy and individual skill involved in professional uplink or Gridiron matches compared to public matches. And while there are naturally better and worse pro teams, the teams are usually balanced enough to allow for a fun playing and viewing experience. In public matches, usually one team ends up getting steamrolled, but if teams are balanced, boy are you in for a ride. Speaking of competitive play, I have searched high and low to find out the reason why CTF was chosen in the CoD World League over Gridiron, and it seems like this matter was decided in a vote by pro players. Prior to the CWL Dallas event on the 8th of December, Gridiron and CTF were alternated in Game 3 each round. Shortly before the event, it was decided that Gridiron will be dropped in favor of CTF. The decision, however, was anything but unanimous. Looking at some of the tweets of pro players, we will see that amongst others Team Envy's Decimate, Aches from Evil Geniuses and Karma from Optic Gaming were in favor of CTF, while Luminosity Gaming slacked and Scump as well as Crim6 from Optic Gaming preferred Gridiron. At this point, I would love to show you a clip taken from a Twitch stream of Crim6 in which he and Scum discussed the two modes, but getting permission to use that might be difficult, so I'll just leave a link to it in the description if you want to check it out yourself. At the time when it was unclear which of the two modes would be chosen for competitive play, one major talking point of the pros with regard to Capture the Flag was whether the respawn timer should be changed from 5 to 7.5 seconds, in order to allow an easy escape from the enemy base with their flag after their team has been taken out. Opponents of this notion argued that this might make the gameplay even slower paced than it already is, since one death on your team could result in the loss of a flag, causing players to approach things more cautious. This change eventually went through and is now part of the updated CWL rules. The slower pace of CTF is what really sets it apart from Gridiron, and the fact that stalemates frequently occur in which both your team and the enemy team hold each other's flag, and both try to return their own greatly contributes to this pace. On top of that, a solid defense on both sides will also slow down games immensely. While from a spectator's point of view this might seem less interesting to watch, it is easy to see that pros might prefer a game mode in which they have more control over the outcome of the match through the strategies they employ. Optic Karma in fact even agreed with a post of Reddit user Wallies who stated, Capture the Flag has always been the most boring to watch, but it's also probably the most strategic. I've always thought that good players could win the occasional game of Hardpoint or S&D against great players, but great players will always stomp in CTF. As pointed out before, at least in competitive Gridiron matches, there is also a great deal of strategy involved. However, overall it can be considered more chaotic than CTF. Another key difference between the modes is that ball carriers in Gridiron are more or less defenseless aside from their ability to perform a melee attack. A commonly used trick to fight back as a ball carrier is passing the ball to an enemy, gunning him down and then continuing your run towards the goal. However, that trick is situational, as you can imagine, and having an escort is always better than relying on it. Flag carriers can at the very least retaliate more effectively by using their weapons. Some common criticisms I've read about Gridiron are first of all that it changed the scoring system compared to the predecessor Uplink, where a thrown goal would be awarded with 1 point and a dunk with 2 points. Now a field goal is worth 3 points while a touchdown is worth 7 points, meaning that 2 field goals are no longer equal to a dunk or touchdown, whatever you wanna call it. In my opinion, this makes sense, as without the advanced movement system, getting a touchdown is a much more challenging task, and thus should be rewarded appropriately. Some people also argue that the game mode just doesn't work as well in the boots on the ground Call of Duty, but from my experience playing, this doesn't seem to be the case. When the teams are well balanced, the pacing of the game mode is great. There will be a lot of back and forth with plenty of goal mouse action and therefore plenty of chances for both teams to score and to make comebacks. Also, with great coordination, passes will allow teams to quickly move forward, providing additional opportunities to score, which ultimately rarely results in a boring phase during a game, which is why I really love this mode. Gridiron as well as Uplink both are inspired by traditional sports like basketball and football, and Sledgehammer really made a smart move by introducing a mode like this in Advanced Warfare, because these do not need to prove that they are entertaining to watch and that strategic team efforts are required for teams to succeed in them. And that traditional sports feeling translates really well to the game modes in question. Looking at a criticism of Parasite from Complexity Gaming regarding Gridiron, he states that a typical Gridiron match plays out as follows: 1. Kill and get map control, 2. Trap other team in spawn, 3. Everyone nade, challenge the goal point, and 4. Throw or dunk based on kills. Now, I'm not going to claim that he's wrong, because again, I'm not an expert when it comes to competitive CoD, and maybe I just don't see the full picture, but consider this. The spawns for both Gridiron and CTF are very similar, and in some cases even identical in terms of their location, and that they simply don't flip in those modes. You don't believe me? Feel free to check out the spawn guide created by Reddit user jgod316 that I linked below. So what exactly prevents players from doing the same in CTF? I have not yet found a satisfying answer to that. If you know, tell me, I'd like to find out. With that being said, I have been going on a bit of a tangent, because talking about competitive CoD was not supposed to be my main focus. So, how exactly does Gridiron rank in comparison to other objective game modes in terms of popularity when we look at public matches? Well, I basically already gave away in my introduction that its low popularity is no miss. But it isn't the least popular game mode, that would be CTF. The popularity was determined by checking the weekly leaderboards for the period between the 12th and the 17th of March. I chose the weekly leaderboards rather than the all-time leaderboards simply for convenience. Since you can't filter by game mode when checking the player count, I had to scroll through the leaderboards until I found a point where the first player with a score per minute of 0.0 appeared for each mode. The base player count, that is, the number of players across all modes, grew by roughly 1000 during this process, so I had to adjust the numbers to make them comparable, although the adjustments didn't result in a change in the ranking. If you want to see the unadjusted numbers, I also have relevant screenshots of the leaderboard at the time linked in the description. Keep in mind, this ranking is for the PC version of the game. Player numbers on console are without a doubt much larger, and thus the ranking might differ slightly, but we still have a fairly large sample size that should allow us to recognize a general trend. Out of the 87,065 players active during that period of time, only 3,509 played CTF and 4,502 Gridiron. There were a couple of daily contracts for Gridiron wins during that time, while there weren't CTF related contracts, so that might also make a small difference. Search and Destroy is the 5th most popular objective game mode with 5,198 players, which honestly surprised me a little since it's also a competitive game mode. Like CTF and unlike Gridiron, it is very slow paced, probably even slower paced than CTF. Due to the absence of respawns, individual gun skill can make a huge difference. But this fact also means that map positioning is key, since teams strive to gain that man advantage at all times in order to turn the odds in their favor. As a matter of fact, getting first blood is an important step on the way to winning rounds in S&D. For example, during the CoD Ghost days at the UMG Nashville event in October 2014, the team most wanted won 88% of their S&D rounds in which they drew first blood. If you do end up getting taken out, your team should be in position to trade kills. Also, positioning yourself so that you're able to deny enemy flanks and rotations, peek bomb sites, and can quickly rotate yourself is essential. While on offense, be sure to plant the bomb in a position that you can easily peek from a safe spot and get proficient at wasting time after a successful bomb plant. Whereas defenders in that same situation have to make a decision whether to go for kills or attempt a defuse. Last but not least, choosing when to attack which side as a team, as well as knowing when and how to rotate, is also very important. Next up in the popularity ranking is Hardpoint with 17,274 out of 87,065 active players, which is the last of the modes in CoD World War II that are played competitively. For Hardpoint, having the rotations of the hills memorized, which will always be the same on a particular map, is crucial if you want to be able to compete in this mode. This is due to the fact that you and your team have to be prepared to move on to the next objective when time for Hardpoint is about to run out, regardless of whether you're defending the hill or trying to retake it. In this context, teams also have to focus on controlling the enemy spawns to ensure that they don't actually gain an advantage from the position they respawn with regard to the next hill in the rotation. In addition, positioning yourself while defending an objective in a way that covers key positions or routes and denies enemy flanks is also relevant to prevent an enemy push into the objective. Failing to accomplish these tasks, even making little mistakes, can lead to a heavy shift in the flow of play and thus allow for great comebacks. For the more casual player, this mode will be attractive because it is good for earning streaks, especially since the introduction of Domination 50, whereas kills in Hardpoint are still rewarded with 100 XP. Kill Confirmed is the 3rd most popular objective game mode in the ranking with 20,217 out of 87,065 active players. And there really isn't much to say about this mode since it's basically like Team Deathmatch but with an extra opportunity to earn score and therefore streaks, and longer lasting games. Naturally, predicting enemy spawns through the location of your teammates on the minimap is still an option like in TDM, and you can set up ambushes near drop tags to surprise the enemy when they're trying to collect them. So the mode isn't devoid of strategic plays, but it certainly is much more accommodating for lone wolf type players. The 2nd most popular objective game mode is the Newcomer War with 21,819 out of 87,065 active players. War is a completely new experience like we have never seen before in CoD multiplayer. I have hinted at before that people love their streaks, and this mode doesn't have any aside from the occasional flamethrower, yet it is fairly popular. Why? Well, the novelty aspect of it is certainly one of the reasons. It also offers great potential to complete camo challenges since you'll encounter a lot of stationary targets, and furthermore your KD in War doesn't influence your global stats, so it's a nice relaxing mode to just chill out when you're getting tired of trying to compete with the sweaty tryhards in other modes and their bars, PPSH SMGs and Volkssturmgewehre. The mode also captures a little bit of the essence of what brought many of us to the CoD franchise in the first place, the epic stories and missions from the campaign mode. Even a lot of players that nowadays only touch the multiplayer will look back with nostalgia to when they snuck into Pripyat together with Captain Macmillan to take out Zakhaev in CoD 4, when they escaped from Vorkuta with Reznov in Black Ops 1, or hissed the Soviet flag with the latter on the Reichstag in World at War. War really makes you feel immersed in the action, whereas in the other modes you sometimes easily blend out that you're supposed to be in a war scenario and focus more on individual plays, strategy, or other such details. The mode really requires a team to coordinate. Building the bridge or escorting the tank on Operation Breakout on your own simply is not feasible. Unfortunately, you'll often get into teams that, for example, do not provide smoke cover for you when you attempt to build a bridge, or throw themselves on the objective with you to get the building done quicker. Guys, snipers in the back of the map can be helpful to clear out MG nests and other snipers, but we really don't need 4 snipers on a team sitting back doing nothing. I'm sure you've experienced this before too, but this is a player mentality issue rather than a game mode issue. Nevertheless, I do feel like some objectives, such as that exact bridge, heavily favor one side over the other, which takes away from an otherwise conceptually great game mode. Finally, the most popular objective game mode is Domination with 30,952 out of 87,065 active players. You just can't beat the classics, I guess. Despite the fact that Domination 50 has been heavily critiqued, despite the fact that it isn't the best game mode for competitive play, it still reigns supreme. The game mode simply has an interesting flow. Back in Ghosts, I almost played Domination exclusively. Fights over the B flag are always intense, and a common strategy is flipping spawns by capping the enemy's home flag in order to force them to move away from B while they are in control. Naturally, you'll also have to prevent them from doing the same while you are in control by positioning yourself well so that key positions and routes are covered, which creates an interesting dynamic. So, in conclusion, what can we say about the preferences of the casual CoD player when it comes to objective game modes? The general trend seems to be that people want to play fast-paced game modes in which they are able to earn streaks easily and that don't require massive amounts of team coordination. Or in other words, modes where they can shine and carry the team with their individual gun skill. To some extent, Gridiron fulfills these criteria. It definitely is fast-paced, and the potential to earn streaks is definitely there, but it is somewhat hampered by the fact that kills are only worth 50 points, and that certain objective-based actions aren't properly rewarded with score either. You aren't rewarded with score if you successfully receive a pass, and you aren't rewarded with points if you intercept a ball flying towards your goal either. I can understand the former, you don't want people to abuse the pass mechanic to rack up score, but I'm certain that you could incentivize passing with score without games devolving into endless strings of passes. For instance, introduce a cooldown timer so that a pass is rewarded with score only every so many seconds, or if that isn't enough, make it so only goalwards passes are rewarded which cover a certain minimum distance on top of that. Another common strategy in Gridiron that I didn't mention before, which consists of resetting the ball near your own goal by throwing it out of bounds in order to deny an enemy attack, also isn't rewarded. Again, there's potential for abuse, but I believe that if this action was only rewarded under the condition that a certain number of enemy players must be near your goal, and within a limited radius around your own goal, you could make this work. Or simply increase the score per kill to maybe 75, but I see that this could also deter players from playing the objective, so that should perhaps be a last resort. Finally, they could just like in war mode not have the KD influence the global stats. They seem to have recognized the KD issue since deaths aren't displayed on the scoreboard, but when the game released they still influence the global stats. Truth to be told, if they had changed that in the meantime, I wouldn't know since my KD pretty much is at a constant level now and massive wins or losses don't immediately result in a global KD change. But I do usually read all the latest patch notes and don't recall ever seeing a massive change like that for Gridiron. Where do you draw the line though? Why not remove the influence of KD and global stats for other objective modes as well? I can't give you a definite answer for that one. People focus way too much on KD and stats nowadays, and that may never change. There's a fine line between promoting players to play the objective and alienating streak and stat junkies. So, scoring objective-based actions higher than kills and assists might be fine if done correctly, meaning it shouldn't be as extreme as Domination 50 in that regard either, but removing the influence of KD and the global stats could be pushing it. I'm all for people playing the game the way they enjoy it, and something that should definitely never happen is people putting down other players because they don't play the game their way, but we have to find some kind of common ground to make it an enjoyable experience for everyone. We all love CoD, we all made our contribution to the franchise becoming as big as it is today, and we all want to see it prosper in the future, so let's put our petty differences aside. I'm rambling a bit now, but my point is that whether or not this change in particular could bring about the desired rise in popularity is debatable, but it would be worth a try at least in my opinion. And that pretty much wraps up everything I had to say about Gridiron and the popularity of objective game modes. I hope this wasn't too overwhelming. I'll definitely prepare something easier to digest for next week, maybe my first Rainbow video or some retro game related video, but I hope you had as much fun watching this as I had doing research and expressing my thoughts on the matter. In any case, until next time, keep it classy.